Hey, it's Greg here with Outdoors on the Cheap, and I thought I'd do a response to a viewer comment on a video I did a while ago talking about my fire kit. I can't remember what the title was. I'll put a link to it at the end of this. All I was mentioning is that I find it just mystifying how many of these YouTube influencers types have, talk about these giant fire kits. They go into the woods, all this stuff, right? All, a ridiculous amount of stuff for starting fires. And I mentioned that all I ever bring is what I can carry on me. I've got my Bic lighter in my pocket. I got a ferro rod attached to my knife, and usually in the breast pocket of my shirt, I have a pack of matches, the kind of strike anywhere Eddie light type matches, and they're wrapped up in a plastic bag, that sort of thing. So they're kind of waterproof or water resistant, that sort of thing. So I got 3 ways to light a fire, all of them very reliable, all of them useful in different sorts of situations, and one of them is absolutely bulletproof. And I can talk about the relative merits of all 3 of those things, but that's really not what I want to talk about in this video. So this person was talking about flint and steel, how they prefer the flint and steel because it's so reliable and people used it for hundreds of years and that's the best thing, and all these other things are sort of a joke. I'm oversimplifying the comments, but that's the gist of it. And then they went on to a big long laundry list of all the reasons why a Bic lighter is a bad idea. So I first want to talk about the notion of the flint and steel and what I think about that, and then speak to all the critiques of the Bic lighter. Okay, so the flint and steel. Yes, the flint and steel was a reliable way to light fires, and people used them for hundreds of years. And as soon as matches and other options showed up, they stopped using the flint and steel. They used flint and steel for hundreds of years because that was better than the alternative, right? That was better than rubbing 2 sticks together, various forms of friction fire. Right? But as soon as they got something like this, right, or even matches, they would have the flint and steel as a backup to their matches. Right? Because matches are it's way, if you're lighting fires every day, your life depends on fires and lighting them all of the time. You don't want to, it's so much easier to light a fire with matches than with a flint and steel, right? So, for me, I think the only reason we're even talking about flint and steel is because you've got YouTube influencers with their online stores, and they're trying to sell them. Not going to name any names, but there's a lot of big names out there talking about this sort of thing. They want to sell them, right? The same reason you have people talking about, instead of just having a cheap $2 ferro rod like this, there's some giant thing about the size of my forearm that they want to sell you because they can upsell. They're trying to sell you a $20 ferro rod instead of something that costs about $2 or $3 that you can get at Walmart or whatever. So for me, if that's what floats your boat and you enjoy this nostalgic sort of stuff, great. But the only reason anyone's talking about flint and steel is because they're trying to sell them to you. Sell it on their online store and they're trying to get you to buy it. That's it. That's what I think about the flint and steel. I don't bother with it. It's kind of cool. It's kind of neat, but this is my kind of flint and steel is something like this, right? This is a flint and steel. There's a flint, there's a steel, and there's some butane. Really handy. Flint plus steel plus butane equals better. So let's get into the next segue. All the reasons why a Bic lighter is a bad idea. So I wrote them down on a piece of paper here, and I'd speak to each one of these. So, number 1, it'll fall out of your pocket. How? Are you doing cartwheels? What exactly are you doing in the woods? And remember, this was in response to a video I did where I didn't just have a Bic lighter. I had ferro rod, taped to my knife sheath, and also had a pack of matches. Falls out of your pocket. I've never had a Bic lighter fall out of my pocket in my life. I'm 52 years old. You'd have to be hanging upside down or something, or doing handstands, or you have like the worst pants ever that have like unbelievably shallow pockets. Maybe if you're wearing like some kind of gym shorts or something like that. But if you're wearing pants in the woods with good pockets, you're not going to it's not going to fall out of your pocket. The other one, it can run out of fuel. A brand new Bic lighter will give you 3,000 lights. And, you should always do the check before you go in the woods. Just give it a little shake. And if you can hear that there's fluid in it, you're good. You're good for hundreds and hundreds of lights if you can just hear that. And even if it's empty, like this one here, I can't hear anything. So this is a Bic lighter I just keep around the house. You know, there was years where I used a wood stove to light my, to heat my house. And there was one season, one winter, where I had a so-called empty Bic lighter. There was no noise when you shook it. And I lit fires with that empty Bic lighter for 2 years. Like for 2 years, every morning, and every morning or whenever I needed fire to light the wood stove, the thing would light over and over and over again. So even when it's empty, so-called empty, you get a lot of lights out of a Bic lighter. But 3,000 lights, you know, even though it's on its last legs, maybe you get 100 lights. What kind of situation are you going to be in where you're going to need more than 100 lights? I guess if you're abandoned in the forest forever. Yeah, it's got a light. And even when it runs out of fuel, you can still light a fire with a Bic lighter if you know what you're doing. There's lots of ways, because it is a flint and steel, right? As long as you got some good tinder, some really nice, you know, dry, fluffy stuff, there's all kinds of clever ways to get a fire going. Using an empty Bic lighter, just using the, you know, the flint and steel, which usually outlasts the fuel. Okay, so it runs out of fuel, not a problem. Not going to run out of fuel. As long as you can hear the fluid before you go in the woods, you're going to be all right. It can empty yourself in your pocket. I guess in some weird scenario, this thing is going to get pushed down and it's going to empty itself in your pocket. I can't imagine that. It's never happened to me in my life. In my life. So I don't know what you'd be doing to your lighter for that. What situation would be going on in your pocket? What are you doing in your pockets? It's not going to empty itself in your pocket. It's not. I've never worried about it. It's never happened to me in my life. Another one. The fuel won't ignite after it's below 20 degrees Celsius. I didn't confirm that temperature, but let's just take that as true. So let's say it's minus 21 degrees Celsius outside. Is it minus 21 inside your pocket where you have the lighter? Is your body minus 21 degrees Celsius? No, it isn't. Right? Your body is 37 degrees Celsius, right? And the lighter is in your pocket near your groin, which is a fairly warm place. So the lighter is not going to be minus 21 degrees Celsius because you are alive. Okay, and you take it out of your pocket. Now it's starting to cool off, right? But you've got some time, right? Your hand's got some heat, right? You've got some time to get the lighter to work before it gets down to the temperature it is outdoors. I'm sure in extreme environments, you know, you're way, way somewhere unbelievably north and it's minus 40 or minus 50 degrees Celsius. Right, the Bic lighter is probably not the best thing in the world, but I am sure even in that scenario you can take it out of your pocket, and you got to, you know, maybe a minute to get a fire, you know, to get it'll function for about a minute before it gets so cold it won't work. You know, where I live, it can get to minus 20 Celsius where I live, but I've never had a problem using a lighter in the winter because I am not minus 20 degrees Celsius. My hand isn't minus 20 degrees Celsius. My groin is not minus 20 degrees Celsius. Okay, so it'll still work. Okay, next one. It doesn't work at high elevation. So I looked this up, and apparently if you look at some different these different blogs and, you know, Reddit and so on and so forth, somewhere between 9,000 and 15,000 feet, you can have trouble operating a Bic lighter. And there's other things you have to use that are, you know, even more hot. Where I live, like the highest mountain in this province is, I think, 1,100 feet, right? Cape Smoky. That's about a 5-hour drive from where I live. On the mainland here, the highest mountain's like 1,000 feet, Wentworth. And I don't, you know, I'm not out in the woods on the top of that one mountain. You know, where I live, you're usually within 200 feet of sea level or something like that, right? Yeah, if that's a risk, you know, if you're a person who is at risk of being 9,000 feet above sea level, yeah, maybe you should look into something else. But if you're not, it's not a problem. So it's kind of like a fake problem. It's, yeah, okay, sure. Okay, it doesn't work at that elevation. I don't have to worry about that, so it's fine. Maybe if I'm in a jet or something like that. I don't know, who knows. Next one. it'll burn your fingers if you keep the flame on for too long. Yeah, so don't do that. Don't do that. You know, if you need to sustain a flame to get something going, you find something you can light. Like you take a piece of birch bark and you fold it like this and you light the birch bark. And you use that like a match to light things, right? You get a flammable material, you light that, you fashion it into a stick, right? You light that and you use it to get something going, whatever that is. Birch bark, piece of paper, piece of wax paper, some dry wood that you can find in the woods, whatever you can find. You can always find something if you know what you're doing, right? There's always different ways to fashion a lighting implement like that. So you light something else with your lighter, and that way you don't have to leave your lighter on and use all your fluid. You just light something and you use that. And all you're doing here is you're making a flame. Okay. Will not light damp wood. Well, yeah, why are you trying to light damp wood? Light dry wood. I don't understand that. Like nothing will light damp wood. I mean, I guess if you've got kerosene, gasoline, kerosene, that'll light damp wood. But yeah, like, you know, a match won't, like nothing lights damp. Damp wood doesn't want to burn. You need dry wood. You need something dry. You need some tinder or something like that, something to get things going. And those things will light damp wood. There's no fire lighting implement I can think of. No simple thing like a lighter or a match. A ferro rod won't light damp wood. Bic lighter won't light damp wood. A match won't light damp wood. Many matches might, right? But a match won't light damp wood either. You got to know how to make a fire. You got to know how to get, find things in the woods. You can bring stuff in with you. All kinds of people bring these cotton balls soaked in, Vaseline and all these different things like that. But if you actually understand the ecology of where you are, you know what to go for when it's wet. Like it rained all night and it rained all morning today. It has stopped raining now. But I guarantee you, give me 5 minutes, I can get a fire going in this situation because I know where to look for the dry stuff. There's always something dry. There's always something you can use. And also where I live, there's this fantastic stuff called birch bark that burns even when it's wet, which usually, if I can find that, I go for that. But there's other alternatives if you know what you're doing. And I've done videos on that. So yeah, I won't light damp wood, but yeah, why are you trying to light damp wood? Right, get some dry wood, get that going, and then use that dry wood when it's on fire to light the damp wood. If you hold it on for too long, it can explode. Yeah, so don't do that. Like, that's not a risk, right? You're not going to accidentally hold it on for too long. It doesn't work in wind. Yeah, a match won't work in wind. You ever try getting a fire going with a ferro rod in the wind? It's kind of hard, right? Because you're trying to light some light, fluffy stuff. It's hard to light fires in the wind, full stop. Doesn't matter what you're using. So that's not a knock on the Bic lighter. That's just like, it's hard getting fires going in the wind. Roundabout response to this, this set of comments. Every once in a while you get one of these great comments on your YouTube channel. Just so much to work with, so much good material. I'm sure I'm not trying to beat up on this person. It's more like I'm speaking to the things the person said. Okay. So I couldn't make sense of any of the comments. None of those are knocks against a Bic lighter. Bic lighter is just the most convenient, reliable, useful, small, light, multiple use. It's just a great tool for lighting fires. And again, if you get these things wet, that's one of the knocks, you get it in the water. It is not, I've got a video on how to deal with that when you get them wet. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube. But really, some people just stand here doing this, but really if you're blowing it really hard a number of times, and then just work with it a little bit, you'll get it going, okay? So it's not a really big deal getting a Bic lighter wet. And, in terms of the risk of losing a Bic lighter, it doesn't hurt to bring another one, right? Usually somewhere on, if I have a backpack, there's another Bic lighter in the backpack. If I got a little bag, that sort of thing, fanny pack or whatever, there's usually a backup Bic lighter in that, right? Or one of those smaller half-size Bic lighters, really small, but still 1,000 times easier to get a fire going with a Bic lighter than with a ferro rod, or and it's Matches are really great, but you have a finite number, right? 25 matches or 50 matches. You don't have a lot. So, you know, the Bic lighter will give you a lot more lights than a pack of matches. And you get those matches wet and they're done, right? So the main value of having matches and why I always have them is if you're in a situation where your hands have gone really, really numb, matches, it's easier to use matches than a Bic lighter or a ferro rod, right? And if you're in a really tough situation, you can put 3 of them together and just light those. Now you've got a really, really strong flame, right? So there's all kinds of usefulness to matches. And usually with mine, I've got a kind of like kit, you know, like I got the matches and they're wrapped up in something waterproof, which is also something flammable. Like in this case, they're wrapped up in, you know, wax paper, right? That's flammable. This elastic band's flammable. So it's like a fire kit inside a fire kit. Inside the matches, I got another little piece of wax paper, right? More flammable material. Then I got the matches, right? They're not waterproof matches, but you know, you wrap it up like that. You wrap it up in something like this. You put it inside a sandwich bag or something like that. So you got multiple layers of water protection, and you know, you've got a set of waterproof matches and some stuff you can light, right? For that matter, it's always handy. I don't think I have it right now because I used it recently. On the back of your knife, you should have like a piece of wax paper, something flammable. I mean, there's always things in the woods you can use, but if you're in a tight situation, you're in a rush or whatever, you just can't be bothered, it's handy to have something that's easy to light, right? So you can use that like a match. Instead of holding your lighter on to get something going, you light that thing and then you use that thing to light a fire, and so on. So just thought I'd run through those comments, give people something to think about. For me, you know, you understand what you're doing when you're in the woods. You shouldn't need much more than, I mean, it's always good to bring more than one means to light a fire, and in case you do set your Bic lighter. I've lost Bic lighters by just setting them down and forgetting where I put them. A great way to avoid losing your Bic lighter is to pick ones that are highly visible, and then to do something to make them even more visible, right? Add color to them, right? So when you set it down, it's just gonna be unnatural, right? You don't want a camo Bic lighter. You don't want a black or a brown or wood colored Bic lighter. You want something garish, right? Kind of unnatural and outrageous, right? And with contrast. Like if this was blue, I'd still have a yellow piece of electrical tape around it. Something that makes it stand out. So you're very unlikely to get up and walk away after you've had, you know, lunch or whatever, right? So you bring a second Bic lighter, you're not going to lose it. That's all you got to do. So yeah, it's always good to have more than one means to light a fire, just in case you lose something. If you only have a ferro rod and you lose it, you got nothing. If you only got a Bic lighter and you lose it, you got nothing. If you only got matches and you use it, or they all run out or they get wet, you're out. Right? So you should always have some sort of backup. But in my mind, if you've got a Bic lighter and a pack of matches and a ferro rod, I think you're pretty much ready for just about anything. Never hurts to have a second Bic lighter as well, because they're just so easy and useful. Okay, so just some things to chew on. I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. And until next time, enjoy the outdoors on the cheap. Thanks for watching.